Welcome on. Welcome all. We are online.
Thank you. And good afternoon to all. And first of all, greetings for the World Environment Day. This indeed is, I think, 52nd iteration of World Environment Day, if I'm not wrong. And every year we have been celebrating it since 1973, a first year after the birth of United Nations Environment Program, where I worked for more than 2 decades on one of the most successful programs of protecting the ozone layer. I'm very proud of that success for various reasons. One is, today it looks like something which is impossible to achieve because we are in different times. But we will go as we think about it, and as we talk about health and the environment issue in context of the theme of the World Environment Day of 2025. And the theme is beat plastic pollution. Take action on plastic pollution, reduce it and control it, and probably get rid of it so that we are back to the nature the way we were before. And with me today is Dr. Joe Thomas, who is a public health specialist. And he is speaking to us from Melbourne, Australia, where I am in India in a city called Pune. I am now heading a Green Thair Foundation, which is the NGO under the Ministry of Company Affairs. And Joe Thomas is now the professor in Australian Institute of Community Health and Management. And look, this environment and the health is already in front of you on the screen. And we are going to talk about this intricate, challenging, and one of the life-threatening issue. And luckily for us today, the issue is about plastic and environment. So let me put it in the context of the time. Just about 6 months back, the United Nations Environment Assembly met in order to negotiate through the International Negotiation Committee about the plastic treaty. They made a progress. That was a positive thing. That is called as the first part of the 6th session of the plastic treaty. We are not yet reached there, but we are about to reach there. And on the top of that plastic treaty is the driver of protecting our health. And that's why there is an urgency. The plastic treaty negotiation started in 2022. So it's about 3 years down the line. And it has to move fast. And just about a week back, we had what is called as a World Health Assembly, which met in Geneva for their 78th session. And it was termed as a spectacular, historic, and once in a lifetime achievement that they wanted to get the pandemic treaty, and they got it. Of course, some of the details are yet to be worked out, but now we have the first ever pandemic treaty in the world. So, first ever plastic treaty is waiting in the wings, and first ever pandemic treaty is already in a place and getting the details on. So, friends, This is the context. And Professor Joe, I'm going to request him to tell us about the key issues that were discussed in a World Health Assembly, which are related to health in general, but plastic in particular. And I say when in plastic, I talk about pollution in general. Because you know that the pollution issues at the United Nations level are air pollution, water pollution, plastic pollution, and chemical pollution. So there is a whole group of polluting constituents. And let's hear from Joe. What do you think? So we will be having a dialogue between Joe and myself, environment and the health, which is becoming a driver for us to take action. And we'll see that we will end this podcast by declaring not just concluding remarks, but concluding action. So we are going to, at the end of it, walk the talk. We are formulating it as we go along, and we will declare it that this is what we will be doing. Dr. Joe Thomas, floor is yours.
Namaste. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Shende, for arranging this very timely issue. And also the technicalities of Terra Foundation is hosting this meeting. And I appreciate and acknowledge your contribution and your colleagues who are working behind the scene. Thank you very much, and good evening to all. I am speaking from Melbourne. Melbourne is known as Naram. That is the indigenous name for Melbourne. So greetings from Naram. And about a week ago, I had the opportunity to attend some of the 78th World Health Assembly in Geneva, which I am attending for last 6-7 years. And there is a reason why I'm saying that I'm attending several of this consecutively. I'll come to that. This year's World Health Assembly had about 72 items in the agenda. And let me introduce what is the World Health Assembly. World Health Assembly is a general body meeting of the members of World Health Organization. There are almost 192 countries are members of World Health Assembly, WHO, World Health Organization. And the general body is called WHO, World Health Assembly. And World Health Assembly is the paramount mechanism for taking decisions regarding global health, public health. So that's the importance of World Health Assembly. And the World Health Assembly is attended by the ministers, ministerial departments, or the ministries of the world. And the agenda for the World Health Assembly is vetted or created, curated by Executive Committee of the WHO. That's approximately about 35 people from based on the technical expertise they selected from different countries they nominated. So this technical committee is the committee which decides about the prioritization importance of the agenda for the meeting. And also they are the one who finally weighting the 72 items agenda. So this year they agreed to go for 72 items agenda. And this year is one of the lowest number of items taken up in the World Health Assembly. Normally it goes up to 100, 150. In some time it goes up to 180. And this World Health Assembly is approximately 1 week. Then before that, their executive committee to review it. Then after the meeting, also exco meetings to look into what are the action plans for the decisions taken at the World Assembly. So this is in a nutshell. One of the most important decisions taken at the World Health Assembly was the pandemic treaty. Pandemic treaty is a global agreement on what to do if there is another pandemic comes in. That's in a nutshell, that's it all about. But then there are nuances about it. When you talk about a pandemic, one is the scientific aspect of it. Second, there are political aspect of prevention, control, regulation. Then there are again scientific aspect of vaccines, medicine, treatment, and also other medical equipments. But in the COVID pandemic, what we notice is that there are many significant issues came up. Number one, the biological material of the molecular material of the virus, whether that should be shared globally or who should get that. And why that's important, if you want to work on the vaccine, you should have this genetic material. So initially, this is one of the issue about, it is assumed that it's somewhere in China, Wuhan, this was began, and there are many hypotheses put forward. What is the source of this virus? It could be a animal to human species jump, and there is one of the dominant theories about how this virus came into the human body. It could be because of many reasons, and maybe the environmental crisis is pushing our increasingly human animal conflict or contact is coming up. So this may be one of the contexts in which the coronavirus came into contact with the human being. This is one part of it. So when the virus is started spreading all over the world, people started looking for the genetic material of this virus. Then there are some difference of opinion, some reluctance for sharing to the other countries. The reason is why this is not sharing. Number one, the vaccine created out of this genetic material, there is no guarantee that that is accessible to everybody. Because a country which has got a genetic material about virus, you share it to other country, they create a vaccine, but the country which supplied the virus and the genetic material, they may not get the benefit of the virus, the vaccine. So these are the nutshell. This is one of the difference of opinion why it didn't come through very actively. Even India started manufacturing, Indian companies started manufacturing vaccine, but also it was not widely distributed because many people started hoarding the vaccine. Many countries, United States, they decided to stockpile for themselves first. And many countries, they started stockpiling the virus instead of sharing it with the global community. This particular phenomenon, they call it as vaccine nationalism. There are new words are coined that vaccine nationalism I never heard about earlier. Vaccine nationalism is you manufacture vaccine and you keep it for the national priority. In principle, it may sound good, but scientific point of view, ethical point of view, because diseases are almost becoming without boundaries. There are national boundaries, but diseases, viruses are becoming not bound by national boundaries. So then there's no particular point in one country saying that we have the genetic breakthrough, we have the vaccine breakthrough, but we are not sharing with others. Because even if you don't share, the vaccine can spread and go around. So this is one of the main bone of contention about getting the genetic material, whether it should be shared globally, or who should get it, who should regulate it. So here comes the role of WHO. And the second issue is about the vaccine, whether it's equitably distributed globally and who will ensure that. So this is second part of it. And third is that you need resources, material resources, human resources for make sure that this is spread globally to come out with prevention mechanism.
Right.
So,
right.
but all these are born of contention. There are different opinion. And one of the major difference opinions about the idea of sovereignty, national sovereignty, independent of countries. And this is also an important part of it because the sovereignty of the nation is compromised by surrendering, quote unquote, to WHO. But that is not the case. That's the way it is proposed. And there are resistance towards this global treaty by the national governments and also within the national government. Many countries, within the countries, there are strong movements against those countries being part of the global treaty, saying that you're compromising national sovereignty to an external party.
Mhm.
So this way, that particular issue was, I would say, amplified unreasonably.
Do you
Because in
think,
Norway,
do you think, Joe, that uh, national sovereignty issue has been considered now as a stumbling block for handling the issues like pandemic, which don't know the national boundaries? We have gone through this process in COVID-19, that it starts somewhere, then it's spread across, and nobody is spared. So there is no question of any national sovereignty in hiding certain issues. In fact, we should take a national pride in tackling that issue, how good we tackled it. But did you see in a World Health Assembly in Geneva, people talking about this, that the national pride at misplaced situations are becoming a stumbling block for us to progress? And let me tell you what is a stumbling block. The very fact that we are even today don't know the origin well about the COVID-19, the coronavirus. And I don't know whether we should call it a failure, or that is why we got a pandemic treaty now. We don't know it. So I just want to know your insights into what the delegations were talking about.
See, the discourse, the discussion was between national sovereignty and multilateralism. To solve a global problem, you need a global solution. And that is through a multilateral collaboration, multilateral partnership. So this is that principle, two principles of sovereignty versus multilateralism, but actually it is not one against another one.
Mm-hmm.
Because many countries took pride in being part of a global solution.
Mm-hmm.
For a global problem, we are having a global solution, and we are party to that. And remember, WHO had 192 countries. Out of that, some countries, I mean, the first time one country withdrew from the membership of WHO was United States. That happened this year, first time in the world history. And also what I noticed that there are other 11 countries, they didn't endorse this pandemic treaty. But then I looked at the pandemic treaty's commitment, because commitment can be on various ways. Outright, you're being member to that and signing it. Then some countries, they sign it with some caveat. We are party to this. We are not agreeing with this condition, that condition. There are 45 countries presented their objections or caveats, not completely accepting the pandemic treaty. And in some countries, there are strong national movement is taking place saying that you should not be part of the WHO's pandemic treaty, and particularly about 3 or 4 major countries. So that way, the pandemic treaty, I would say it is still an unfinished agenda.
That is very sad. That is very sad to hear that, because the whole world faced the crisis. We are all locked down. We didn't do anything. We tried to invent our ways out through online meetings and whatever we have. But isn't it a very frustrating, Joe, particularly for me, which comes from the multilateralism and the success of multilateralism, which we have seen in environmental treaties? We see that we went through this crisis of COVID-19, and still some of the major countries are withdrawing from it. So we should be putting up a collective show instead of we are showing a desperate show, a sort of a dispersion scenario we are giving. What did you yourself feel when you left that assembly?
Personally, because quite often when you go to the World Health Assembly, you feel intellectually very excited because you are seeing hundreds of agenda, and you are practically meeting all the heads of the health ministers in one, I mean, within one room, 2 rooms. And we joke about it in WHO Palais, the main conference place of the United Nations. There is a small coffee shop called Serpentine Coffee Shop.
Mm-hmm.
And that is not a big, it's an ordinary, very small coffee shop, few items, a coffee and bacon and maybe a few other things, and some sandwich. That is what it said. That coffee is the main product sold from that coffee shop. Mm-hmm. But you can see that all the tables are ministers and ministers' delegation sitting and having a meeting, formal, informal meeting. Mm-hmm. Almost you can walk across and say, hello, excuse me, can I say hello to you? Can I take a selfie with you? With the top health ministers all over the world. So this is one fascinating part of it. And we joke about it. Most of the decisions were taken in this coffee shop, not in the assembly hall. This is partially I'm talking about as a side event, make it lighter. But at the same time, this year, there are few other issues also happen beyond this. Number one, there are significant withdrawal of fund from the global health in the broader sense.
What is the reason?
The reason is, I'll come to that. The process and the reason and the key players, I'll say that. United States not only withdraw from WHO, they closed down US aid. Closing down US aid means almost overnight they withdraw $8.5 billion from the development aid. And out of that, significant part of the money used to go to global health related issues, including treatment, medicine, diagnostic facilities, and also setting up health systems, technical advice. All this is literally overnight is withdrawn. So this way, this has got repercussion across the region. And to explain it, the impact of this, let me explain an example about it. People are saying that there are 8,000 families are going to withdraw from Geneva. They're going to leave from Geneva because they're going to lose job. So this is the magnitude they're talking about. Because not only WHO staff, UNAIDS, they cut down their staff almost half. About 300 staff are going to lose job. Almost same number in from WHO. Still, we don't know how many are going to lose. Then Gavi, Global Vaccine Alliance, then Global Fund. There are many agencies they're going to cut down. Even at the Geneva government, Swiss government is concerned about it because there are major impact on a major city of Switzerland, Geneva, financial implication. And the market price, the property price is going to be impacted by this one particular decision. These are the different layers of this. And also when you're talking about overnight, people lost treatment, particularly AIDS treatment. That means there are people are going to die because of not getting medicine. It's not that we don't have medicine. Because the cost of it, because of lack of logistical issues, that is what is withdrawn from the global health. So the global health, people are, the confidence in WHO is challenged. And the USAID is cut down. So the financing for global health is significantly challenged. And also there are human resource wise, there is significant number of top level leaders are going to go out of WHO.
So, Joe, I would like to ask at this point of time, and let me share my feeling about it, that when the WHO Director General talks about one world for health, and our Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi ji, also talks about one world, one health. So those are only talking terms. Is it really happening on the ground? What do you feel about it? Because it's not a good scenario when some of the major players just walk out. I mean, I was a part of these negotiations. For example, in Montreal Protocol, I have seen climate change. Climate change, of course, of late people are walking out. But in a Montreal Protocol, there was a consistency. There was a consistency that people had a faith in it. They were supporting it. There was no two ways about it. There were differences, but there were no divisions. There were not disruptions. And I think that won the case in case of Montreal Protocol. So do you think that we are fighting a loose battle here?
I think I would say, I put it in a different way. The intensity for global solidarity is weakened. See, for example, I had opportunity to witness the Sustainable Development Goal, how it is approved in the UN General Assembly in 75 September 22nd. I was at the General Assembly, I witnessed that. So the energy and the excitement, even though we agreed finally on 17 Sustainable Development Goal, initially there were about 35 goals. Then it's negotiated, cut down to a manageable 17. But the negotiation was intellectually stimulating, exciting. People had a great faith and hope in it. But that kind of excitement was not there in the pandemic treaty negotiation. I mean, this is very subjective. I cannot pinpoint answer. This is my perception, and I'm monitoring that for the 3 years. This negotiation, discussion, and the back and forth discussion about the thematic and critical issues. And I would say that a commitment for equity that didn't come through very clearly. Global solidarity didn't come through very clearly. And also the concern for multilateralism was questioned. So these are some of the issues, and how that is, I mean, you have to see that how exactly it's played upon. Number one, normally US government sent a delegation of about 50 people for the World Health Assembly. And they are the senior most people in the global health, public health area, senior professors, senior policymakers, advisors, bureaucrats, very senior, I mean, they're to the core of the subject specialists. Then they spread around in all the thematic discussion. They have their impact, they contribute, they negotiate, they really put their stamp on it. But this year, United States completely withdrew. There is nobody came from US. So the intellectual contribution or negotiation was taken on a different level. But I would even say that's also provided an opportunity. Opportunity for new players to come in, opportunity for new players to occupy space, new players to take leadership. But that, what I noticed that people are caught unaware. They were not prepared to take this new opportunity. See, for example, in the Indian context, I would say that India should come out with an agenda for global health diplomacy, how to utilize this new opportunity and what to do that. And also when people are saying that US government's contribution to WHO was almost $1.5 billion. That means $1.5 billion for WHO and almost $8 billion for overall health and development thing. And for me, it has got another side of the story. US government's annual contribution towards war and war-related machinery is almost $1 trillion. So if you weigh this, the more money and more resources are contributed towards misery, war-related public health calamities. So in that point of view, withdrawing 1.5 billion, you cannot look at it in a different way. Again, WHO used to buy medicines and equipment from United States every year for almost about $800 million worth of products. Now that market is going to change to other countries. And how this is going to come out, it's a new opportunity, I would call it. This is also linked with the pandemic treaty. Pandemic treaty, one of the issues is about production of vaccine, production of diagnostics, production of other treatment opportunities. But then to produce this, you need genetic material of the original virus, original bacteria, whatever it comes to the next one. But then suppose this comes in a country like Indonesia. Indonesia will not have a technical capacity to manufacture vaccine medicine at this stage. But suppose they gave it to X country, a country which has got the competency to produce all this. But in return, they have nothing. They give them genetic material, but in return, they are not going to get the medicine or diagnostic material. So this is one issue which WHO is going to mediate. WHO is going to ensure that at least 10% of the new vaccines, new medicine will be equitably distributed globally.
Okay.
So whenever there is
one thing, Joe, that knowing that USA has withdrawn, and with USA goes the finance is withdrawn, and it is quite a jolt, if I may say so. Was there any determination among the rest of the people, rest of the countries, that don't worry, we will fill in. We will put it because it's a lives of the human being. It's a life of our ecosystem. It's a life of our animals, our biodiversity. And we are not going to compensate. We are not going to lose that. We are not going to let it go. And doesn't matter. Let one country go. Probably they will learn the lesson and come back again. And I like your optimism that yes, it gives up the new opportunity. So did you get that somebody saying that, no, we will go ahead, don't worry? that kind of thing?
No, that's one of the positive aspect of entire meeting, because see, World Health Assembly is conducted parallelly in two committees, Committee A, Committee B. Committee A is about technical aspects of it, all the 72 items, and Committee B is about financing, human resources, technical aspects, and managing the people, and those issues are discussed in Committee B. Committee B decided that all the countries unilaterally going to increase their contribution 20% more.
Very good.
That decision was approved unanimously. All the countries, they decided to increase their contribution 20% more. But on the top of it, independently, many countries, they committed additional funding. It came from Japan, it came from UK, it came from European Union. Also, it came from China. China committed $500 million contribution for the next 5 years to WHO, in addition to its regular contribution.
Excellent. Yes.
So that way, there is an effort towards compensating this.
Good positivism. Positivism.
Yeah, the optimism is there, and they managed to come out of the way. But even though there is a compromise, but also you have to remember that in WHO in Geneva office, probably about 400 people are from United States on secondment. And probably they may have to go. In that capacity, US is losing a very strategic advantage on global health. And the US students' capacity for internship in developing countries to know about global health, that opportunity is going to cut down.
Right. We have been always telling in United Nations that multilateralism is not only for getting a unanimous decision. Multilateralism is also to learn from each other, which cannot be valued. So I don't know whether countries who are walking out will be able to value the losses that they are going to make, because they are not going to learn from others, and the opportunity to get the partnership with the others. Because we always said in United Nations that partnership accelerates the goals. Partnership helps in enriching our experience and even recreating and re-innovating the things. And that opportunity, those who are walking out probably will lose it. And that becomes a very, very important issue in case of the emerging problems like plastics. What do you say?
I completely agree with you, because the people who are walking out of WHO, they're going to lose a great opportunity. For example, United States was undisputed leader of the global health. That they voluntarily denounced that position. This also has an implication that some of the major schools of public health are in the United States. Their credibility to operate globally will be limited now. So this is the one aspect of it. And also the experience sharing will be limited. And suppose a new pandemic come, all other countries, they share the genetic pool, and United States may have a technical capability to produce new vaccine, but they may not have the genetic material, the basics. Because of that, what can happen? Some other countries may build up their capacity. So this is one possibility I can see. And in long term, and on a long-term basis, my personal observation is that United States is going to lose their prominence, their capacity, and also technical ability to address some of the critical global health challenges, and being part of the top table of global problem solving, the solution creation mechanism. This is my observation about it.
Okay. Coming back to the unknown pandemics which are going to come up, and that's why the pandemic treaty, when I read your decisions that are taken there, I feel that we would like to get ready. We would like to get ready for standardization of identification of vaccines, the microbes, and all those things. And now we are entering into an unknown area because of plastic pollution. And particularly when I say unknown area, it is because the health impact it is going to have on us. There has not been adequate research. There have been number of articles, number of research papers by Nature, and number of books probably have come up, but there is no authenticity. It has not been like in IPCC on climate change, which is considered as a final authority, because it reviews all the papers, collates the data, discusses it, and then gives forward, not as a prescription, but as a description of the issues, and then the governments can take care of it. But in case of plastics, what is happening is we have been talking about it. I mean, plastic as a theme for United Nations Environment Program is not the first time. It was there in 2018, it was there in 2013, 23, and now it is again in 2025. And now, during that time, not only the plastic pollution is increasing, now it is touching 500 million ton every year, but that plastic, which is a single-use plastic, becoming microplastic. And on that microplastics, there are reports that microbes are making the habitats. Many people say microbes are making a habitat on microplastics because human beings are spreading their habitats. So microbes have no place. So they are going to the ocean bottom to do that. And those microbes are probably going to produce the fungi, the viruses, which probably are modified one, which will not recognize or which will make a total defeat of human immune system. And our human immune system may not be ready for that. So we are entering into the dark area. And if plastic in a pandemic treaty is not getting in a headway, in a collective way, what will happen to these unknown pandemics which are coming out due to the microplastics and the microbes getting modified?
You presented a very, very profound hypothesis, the impact of plastic on human body. And particularly, there are anecdotal evidence to demonstrate that microplastic is already getting into the human system. And what is its health impact is not being completely monitored. So probably what we need is a global longitudinal monitoring and study on the impact of microplastic on human bodies and what is its implication of human immunity and also the disease resistance and the disease interaction. When human body is holding certain percentage, certain quantity of microplastic in the blood circulation, it may lead towards serious health complication. But this is not as a one person's disease. It's as a collectively, even though it is not called as a pandemic, microplastic pandemic yet, but there is all the hypothetical and also initial preliminary evidence to demonstrate that unless it is monitored and prevention interventions are not in place, microplastic can becoming a major epidemic level impact on human body. This is a very strong hypothesis. And this hypothesis need to be tested, evidence need to be collected, and also longitudinal data should be collected for a decision making. And I think that's one of the immediate challenges for the global community to monitor the health implication of microplastic, which is getting into the human system, and the mechanism in which it's getting on, and how it is deposited in the blood circulation, in the heart or other vital organs of the human body. So this need to be monitored. And I was looking at some of the initial preliminary literature. It's not a systematic literature review, but initial preliminary literature review demonstrate that there is a need for looking at collecting data. And why we are not declare it as a pandemic? Because we don't have enough data. That doesn't mean that the pandemic is not there already.
But let's come to one interesting point, and I know that there is a quite a variety of audience that is listening to us, right from vice chancellors to the faculty to the dean, based on whatever the data I have got. There are also the corporate advisors who are listening to this. I want to ask you the question, and I myself felt that the whole COVID-19 caused about 7 million deaths, approximately. I know something were hidden, something were not hidden, that kind of thing. But if you look at the World Health Organization data, every year, more than 7 million people die due to the air pollution. And this air pollution is a transboundary. It goes from one country to another. Yes, sometimes, many times it is localized, but ultimately it goes to the other ones. So why air pollution cannot be declared as a pandemic? And this question has been asked by one of the experts, health experts, in a question answer.
This also I would link with my earlier suggestion that how do we use data? How do we collect data? What data is collected? What data is not collected? So this is a critical issue. For example, when you talk about air pollution, the definition of air pollution itself, there are different opinions. In some countries, they use 6 parameters. Some countries, they use 7 parameters to define the quantity of the air pollution. So this is one aspect of it. And the second aspect of is the micron, the micro, the micron particles, microparticles of pollution, what is its impact on human body. Similarly on the microplastic. So those areas, the definition is not universal. Even the definition of air pollution itself is not universal. So this is a one issue we have to really look at it. When you say that in one country there are critical air pollution, based on which parameters they're talking about. This is one aspect of it. Then generally we monitor the air pollution in urban settings. In the rural setting, there are different forms of air pollution coming through the burning of the agricultural products, agricultural leftover. So that can contribute to air pollution. But in the perception is that rural areas, less pollution. So our monitoring capacity of the intensity on a longitudinal level, that data is slowly coming up. So air pollution is a major public health threat. Whether it should be declared as a pandemic or epidemic, it's a matter of time. That's my observation. And also, who should declare it as an epidemic? It should be by WHO.
Yes.
So WHO's, if you look at the next 4 or few years agenda, they have some very serious critical agenda is in their hands. Looking at plastic and its impact on health, longitudinal data, and declaring at some point of time, microplastic is a major deterrent to health and major determinant of health. That's one part of it. That declaration is a matter of time. Similarly, air pollution and its impact on health, and it's almost reaching at the critical breaking point. And when they're going to declare, again, it's a matter of time. So these two are the major thing. Again, you have to link up this with the climatic crisis. I know you're saying the climatic change.
I was
climatic
coming
crisis.
I was coming to that, Joe.
Yeah.
That climate change also is now no longer a national issue. It is so happened that there are nationally determined contributions, NDCs. Every country gives the contributions and the goals. But the climate change is a global problem. So with the help of national determinants, national determination, and nationally determined contribution, we are trying to solve the global problem. So maybe we will be successful, maybe we will not, because some of them will walk out from their promises. And as others probably will have to say that, okay, we take a larger share of the reduction of GHGs and we compensate for that. I mean, that is pretty pitiable, shameful position that we are in. But it is, you are right, it is happening not only in plastic pandemic or plastic issue, it is happening in air pollution, it is happening in climate change, and it is happening in biodiversity. So we are faced with these issues, and I have now something to propose. We know that all this funding, we require it for treatment, of course, the first thing, when it comes. We require for vaccine development, for this thing, but we also require for the research, for preventions, and for the strategies to understand. And you mentioned the subjects like standardization. We don't have a standardization even for air pollution. And we may not have a standardization for calling what is a single-use plastic. What is it called? Some people say you only use it for some time and then throw it. Some people say, no, you immediately throw it. So what exactly is a single-use plastic and how it degrades and how the microbes build on that, taking their own apartments on a microplastic. I mean, all this need to be studied, and the research institutes are busy in atomic research, in clean energy, which is the right way to do, of course, but they are also busy in AI. They are busy in blockchain technologies. So don't you think that like WHO, there should be World Technology Streamlining Organization, that where we should put our money? Because I know that money is, sometimes we feel it is unlimited because most of it is going to the Ukraine war. Same thing for climate change. In the negotiations, people are not losing their purse. They say, no, we don't agree to $1 trillion. We will agree to $300 million. That's what happened in the Baku in COP29. People said that we require $1 trillion kitty, and we agreed to 300 million. People were happy, clapped, because earlier was 100 billion, and now it has become 300 billion. But we are far short of 1 trillion. Sorry, I used a million words earlier, but I wanted to say billions. But we know that trillions are going in a wars. So there is an issue of perception. And do you think that so-called Gen Z, the youth, which has a capability of rethinking the issues, rethink the pandemic, rethink the crisis, and trying to find the solutions in totally what is called as a disruptive way? And shouldn't we promote such kind of activities in a youth campus and universities, which in fact their number is growing? And don't you think that is our potential for tomorrow's safer world?
I completely agree, but one of your statement, the climate change, I rephrase it saying that it is no more a climate change, it is a climate crisis. Because the description is an important part of it. How you describe a situation that will influence the way you deal with it. And scientists and the policymakers, opinion makers, and we should start describing it as a climate crisis, not a climate change anymore. Because from climate change to climate crisis, that critical stage that's over already. It is a climate crisis. Because the temperature is increasing, climatic change is very visible. The cycle of rain, monsoon, it is already changing. So, and also forest fire. So the cycle of normal, the weather cycle is dramatically changed to a crisis situation. Then your question about whether new generation will address it. Let me put it in a different philosophical way. Each generation has its own challenges. It's an opportunity to take the entire civilization to one step forward in a more humane, more progressive way, more equitable. That is opportunity. And if you look at again, maybe AI could give some solution for all this. So I'm not denouncing it that AI's research may not be important, but at the same time, are we going to produce a concerned citizens? Sensitive citizens, citizens who are concerned about equity, the rights of other people, and the right to survive, and equitable access to resources for everybody. All those principles are we going to ensure that the new generation is picking up? So this is my only concern. But at the same time, what I'm saying that there is also a collective environment which numbs intellectual curiosity through internet addiction, through maybe your game addiction, the way the cultural, because there are hyperactive society, hyperactive individuals. Hyperactive individuals are covered up, or maybe they're pacified with not necessarily meaningful opportunities. Not asking critical questions, not questioning the society, because youth is one society, one segment of society, which has got a potential to criticize the society on a positively, negatively. When we talk about the youth, what you call the investment of the society, the youth as investment but that investment, unless the proper investment is not there, it can turn towards disaster, demographic disaster. We talk about demographic opportunities. Unless the investment and guiding and shaping the new generation, there's a possibility of a generational opportunity is lost. So this is the challenge. I would say
You are right.
it's a civilizational challenge.
You are right. You are right. So let's take advantage of that youth have probably a capacity to see it in a critical way. It's not in a one fixed way of thinking, in a critical way, and they can find the alternatives to the solutions, which are probably, you can call it in today's language, a third way. Is neither on one extreme or another extreme, but finding a third way. And that's why we have this, you know it, and you were part of it, Joe, that we are starting this single-use plastic-free campus. Now, as compared to the single-use plastic use in the world, the university campuses use may be minuscule as compared to that. But it is significant in a conglomerate of the students. And once they collectively start making it single-use plastic free, they are skilled. Their capacity is built. Their capacity to think in a different way. I mean, instead of using refuse, reuse, recycle, they can also re-innovate, recreate the things. And I think that opportunity, we want to avail it to start this network. We already have a network of net zero university campuses. And that is going on well. Some of the universities are making a tremendous progress on that. But we want to promote this single-use plastic-free university campus, thinking that at one point of time, campus will jump into community. That is what your area is, Joe. And from community, it will become country. And from country, it will probably go to the whole planet. So today, as we discussed, we would like to launch that network. And I would like for you, I want to give a floor to you to get your support for that.
Thank you for thinking about it. And you rightly suggested creating a social movement, and universities are the center of it, and a movement towards against plastic pollution in general, and particularly against the single-use plastic, and greater attention to the impact of microplastic on human body. And I'll be quite happy to endorse that, and our institute will be quite happy to be part of it. And we will create a kind of intellectual body to be part of this discussion on a national level as well as a global level. So I have no hesitation to endorse this, and I'll be thrilled to be part of it. I'm glad that you took it up, and I congratulate your leadership for doing that. And I completely endorse this project and also offer my support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we are going to have a closing remark on just 2-3 minutes each one of us. And first, I would like to give a floor to you. I just want to describe that we had a tremendous response on our podcast. And our project leader, Durga Kamath, has been managing it. And she has a series of questions which have come. Some of them are challenging. So the challenging one, I will forward it to you, Joe, and then the simple ones, I will take it. And we will answer them one by one. And I want to assure those who are watching this that none of their questions will remain unanswered. But at the same time, we will also invite you to join this movement, because we are not debating it. We are just initiating something which is not activism, but actionism. And that's what we want to start with. So that is number one. And I also told you, I think I'm repeating it, that those who are watching it is a very respected audience. They include the vice chancellors, they include the faculty, students, and I really would like to thank them in case they are still there because we are talking for nearly 1 hour, and that is so valuable for people like vice chancellors. But if they are still there, or probably they have put their own students there, I want to thank them and would like to request them to join this movement so that today it proves to be a launch of something really matters. So first I will give for 2 to 3 minutes for Joe to conclude, and then I will make a final word. Thank you.
First of all, let me thank you for taking the initiative and organizing this podcast. It's very timely, very important, and also World Environment Day. And looking at plastic as a focus of this year's discussion, this year's theme of the World Environmental Day. So you rightly selected the issue of plastic, and it's linked with the COVID pandemic and the future pandemic. And also it is linked with the life and even the sheer existence of the planet. So this is a connection between plastic, planet, and also the pollution. So that you correctly and very skillfully steered the discussion, and you highlighted this. And I rightly endorse that particular discussion and debate. And I would say that this environmental pollution, and particularly plastic pollution, it's a civilizational challenge, a challenge for the modern civilization. So each civilization has got its own challenges, but this particular challenge is an existential challenge. This particular challenge, the planet is in crisis, that can literally impact on the human civilization. And one positive light, what you can see is that the aspiration and also the enthusiasm of the youngsters to find out solutions, to look for opportunities to solve this problem, be part of something bigger than the normal day-to-day existence. And I encourage and I pray that a national movement, global movement may come out of it, looking at and asking for the safer environment, cleaner energy, and clean environment. So this may be a beginning of that. Thank you. And I have seen some of the questions. And if you amplify it, if Durga can amplify it, I can spend few time if you permit me to do that. And otherwise, I have all the questions with me. I may be able to answer through various social media, my own webpage and my YouTube, and maybe we'll have a follow-up session on critical questions later on. So we are aware of the questions you asked, but we'll find a way to answer those or find an answer to that. That's my commitment. Thank you very much. Back to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Joe. I think in a very positive way, you have concluded it and summarized it and also shown the way forward for this. So it's a plastic pandemic and planet. I wanted to, after talking to you, Joe, I wanted to add one more P to it, which is a political. So looks like we have to get out of this complex web of plastic, pandemic, politics, and planet. So there's a challenge, but let's keep that joke apart or light remarks apart from it. But I really, really appreciate your time, and because you have a first-hand information on what exactly happened. I know all the things you cannot divulge in a meeting like this, but probably I can see that you have something up your sleeves, and there must be discussions on that. And facing those kind of situation itself is an opportunity to rethink the way the multilateralism is going on. And that's what I feel, that the multilateralism which we thought in 1945 when United Nations came into being and the multilateralism of 21st century, there is a difference. And I think somebody has to start working on that to find out how the multilateralism can evolve to match the present whims, if I may say so, and whatever you call it, tantrums or something like that. But I think we have to develop that multilateralism, how we can quickly compensate for our losses and how we can go ahead in a collective way. Having said that, I must say that there is a need to do a tremendous research. It's not actionism in terms of getting rid of single-use plastic in a campus, but we need to start a huge research programs. So we should look for the grants for which, for the subject for which the grants are still not available, because probably the grant givers are not aware of these subjects. So there should be a training of donors to show that where the funding should go, and there is a human capital who can work on these things. So the network of the campus is not for collecting the single-use plastic and putting in a dustbin, but it is much more than that. It reaches up to pandemic, it crosses the national boundaries and those kind of things. And I myself don't call myself that young. I may be young in a different way, but I think if this message we leave it to the young generation, I think that would be the success of our podcast. So thank you very much. And we will
Thank
look
you.
forward to doing something very useful to the society. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.